Hello and a warm welcome back to the When Dirt Cast with your hosts, me, Jimbo, and Calvinator. As always, we'll discuss Let's NFL updates, transfers, developments, and so much more that has gone on in the last week or so. Obviously, before we get started, one important note, none of what we chat about on here is financial advice. Do your own scouting or hire a director of metaverse football. I'm really excited for this one today. We've got a very special guest, someone, Calva, who over the last couple of weeks, you've known and got to know very well. I'm not too familiar with this person, and neither is the community in some regards. Introduce who we've got on the pod today with us.
Yeah, so last week I spoke about my diamond adventures, and it's not a one-man job. There's another person involved who is the PR director, communications director, my assistant manager. And we had a stream on Wednesday where we also watched our first Magos game and commentated and analyzed it a little bit. It was really fun to do. He's really big on Sorare and football in general, and also a content creator of a great YouTube channel. So all check it out. He'll talk way more about it later. So welcome, Quinny. How are you?
I'm very good. Thanks for having us on, guys. Pleasure to be here. And Metaverse Director of Football. It's a new job title I can chase down. Love to hear it.
one for the CV, I think. You know, it's got pedigree.
Yeah, big time.
Definitely. Yeah, they also wanted for the job ad to have it more like a LinkedIn, you know, and more official. So that's really great. You can really add it to your LinkedIn and CV, etc. Yeah,
There's
so great
to peak LinkedIn potential with MFL, isn't there, to just totally ham it up?
Yeah, you could make one of those classic like LinkedIn posts being like, "Oh, resilience, and we've come back stronger, and I've now got this great opportunity to, be part of this amazing role." And everyone, all the comments, all the bots on LinkedIn will be, "Oh, congratulations, well done." No idea the context behind what the role is about.
Yeah. And this is how with B2B sales, like it's always the meme, right? I would will help you with that, but all right. Yeah, so later on the episode, we'll put you in the spotlight, our manager spotlight, talk all about your MFL experience, content creation, etc. First, we'll start with the updates, unless we have anything to announce, but I think we're okay in that department, Jimbo.
Yeah, I think we're okay in that department, yeah.
Yeah, I think we can move straight on to the updates. We have a lot of stuff to talk about. Also, questions from you, from the listeners on Twitter for Quinny. So we have a lot to talk about. So let's quickly move on to our moment of the week. So Jimbo, I kind of think I know what your moment of the week was.
It's just been, it's not really a moment of the week. It's just been like a really great week for me and the agency, really, coming into season one. I wasn't quite sure what to expect in the first couple of games because off the back of Bastise's very lovely created strength projection charts, the Wyverns were sitting in 6th out of 11th, and I went, oh God, here we go. You know, mid-table mediocrity, maybe we challenge for promotion, but fall away at the end of the season. Maybe we're in a bit of a scrap. Lo and behold, we're 4-0 in the league so far, sitting pretty at the top of the table, albeit we've not faced any of the top 3 sides yet, and we face one of them tomorrow in Ronan's Meat Eaters side, which I'm expecting a loss, but if I can just hold that to a draw, I'll be more than happy. They've won in the cup once, but we did lose today, actually, in the cup 5-1. I said yesterday on my socials that out of the 2 clubs, yesterday they had played 10 games and they'd won 90% of them, so I was feeling very happy. And the next game we played, we lost 5-1. So I thought I'd really cursed it, and there seems to be a thing. Quinny, we'll try not to shout out any of your clubs too much because it seems to be that when we do, they inevitably have a bad run of form over the next week. So just it's called like the When Dirt curse. So just be wary of that one. But yeah, it's been a good week. I'm looking forward to next week and getting to understand progression and all that sort of bit a bit more. But for me, my moment of the week is just
doing well.
The whole week itself, really, not a particular moment, just results after results.
It's probably also fun, we need to say that I'm in the same league, so there will be another
When Derby
with Corsair Cove. And I already played Meat Eaters, and that's the only game I lost. So I think it's a very strong side.
You did tell me that's just your strongest iron squad.
It is my strongest
I'm just going to throw that out there, just in case I lose. That is my immediate excuse, that this is your strongest iron squad.
And there's like 2 rares and 3 even, so it's a bit. Although there's 75, a little bit. But yeah,
unbelievable.
You're underdogs for the When Derby.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Quinny, what would be your moment of the week with Barcelona? Any nice games or successes? Or maybe Magos, I don't know.
I was just checking in on the Magos results there to see how we got on after obviously the Basel losing the first game. I won my first game personally, which I don't know if I'd call it the moment of the week, because I actually quite enjoyed some of the, like, in the games following. I've actually lost. I've not really won that often since my first game. I've had a wee losing streak there, and I've been chopping and changing and rotating, and I've actually really liked that part of it, because I actually came into the season quite confident after a bunch of the friendlies I'd been playing. I was saying to you, Calva, on the stream that it's like, oh, I think I've cracked a bit of a code. I think I've got all my bars in the right places, and I've got the right guys in the right spots. And like, the games have still been really tough, and even though the opposition, like, a few of the teams are been quite evenly matched and that kind of thing. So a bit of a
reality check.
Reality check, yeah, or maybe
that's a bit too harsh,
unexpected kind of surprise, where, like, I really enjoyed the winning part on the first game, and like, winning's just always nice, I suppose. But I think it's more a comfort thing for the game. Like, the game's like got like a solid kind of base on however it's doing the matchups engine and that kind of thing. It's not just on player score and aggregating the value of the scores or anything like that. There's a wee bit more that's going into it here. So yeah, I guess that was a big part of it. But I thought really the moment of the week for me has been the whole opening kind of sequence of matches. I've really enjoyed all of them, different decisions that goes into it, and it's been fun as well, just like logging in and the matches there to watch. It's not like something where you have to be at its beck and call to action stuff and get it going. So it's hard to pick one single moment, but they're the ones that have kind of stood out for me. First win, first loss.
Moments of the week. There we go. We'll just add a plural. We'll add moments of the week for you, Quinny.
I think for me, it's also been like that. Like, of course, we have the whole progression thing. I guess in the dev updates, we'll talk way more about progression, but just kind of almost daily or like 3 times a day, check how is my progression going. And you have the training and those matches, and it can be another +1. That's already very addicting to see your players go up. And I think also for me, it's just, the whole Magos thing, which I'll talk in season update, I think was also great. And also that my gold team and silver team are doing pretty well. Like, I was a bit afraid of like the relegation, and especially Black Sea. Jimbo, you trusted me again with Arango.
Yeah, I know.
With your talent.
I've been following closely.
I actually got off to a pretty decent start. So I think Black Sea is okay. So I think I'll join you guys in saying, like, the whole week has been one great moment with the progression and the games, and really a great vibe also going on with so many, like, on Twitter and general has been exploding. So I guess just the whole season 1 really starting was amazing. So I would say that. Let's move on to the dev updates, which were pretty much all about player progression. So you could not have missed it, that player progression started with season 1 and that players are getting better. The team worked on that, their main focus, to deploy the match progression and also the training feature. They did intensive monitoring, analysis, etc. And everything ran as expected, but there were a couple of things, such as a bug that with their, let's say, they were launching the first training session that didn't really go well, and they will keep monitoring that and then try to automate it. Now it's still done manually. Also, there was a few plumbing
issues.
Exactly. Also, with the dev jail, that there was initially players got less XP than expected, so they also identified and fixed it. So now they're still doing it manually, and then hopefully can do it automatically. But everything is functioning as expected. That is, I think, the main message, and they will continue to monitor it because it's such a vital, like, important element of the game. And the final thing is that about competitions, earlier this week, part of the time has been dedicated to the scheduling of the competitions. There were like some issues, so kind of the league tables were like based on overall strength, and you were facing kind of people like in that area of the table. I don't know if you noticed that, Jimbo, that you were at like...
Yeah, that's what Big Will said, didn't he? He sort of reported it, that he was playing all the big strong sides at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
And then when you go into the cup games, which, the group games are very important to get you out of the group stage, you're playing equally strong sides. So your first start of the season is just absolutely ruthless. And sometimes it's nice to maybe challenge someone who's slightly was in your league from slightly weaker pot, but it's good that they've sort of identified
so I think
that.
A lot of league tables can be totally changed around based on this, that you were already playing teams like similar. If you won, you were top of the table, and now you still have to face or the weaker sides or the stronger sides. So that also has been fixed, and now all the scheduling should be done, and also with some late registrations, that's also okay. So let's talk about progression. There was big debate. Obviously, we've all seen our players go up.
Hopefully.
Did you discover any real talent in your agency, like +2, +3?
I've had 1 +2, which was a player that I bought in from the transfer window just before the season started, which was quite nice because he replaced one of my rare players I had in the Wyverns for a while. So I knew I was going to downgrade, but he's actually gone up 2, so that downgrade isn't actually as deficit's not as big now. I've had a 6, 7 +1s, but I think it's just great that I log onto the app plenty of times each day to look at the results and to watch the games and so on and so forth. But now I'm, in the morning when trading's done, I'll have a little lunchtime, got a bit of spare time, got any +1s, any progressions. There's more engagement and more, sort of, I guess, things to do is probably an underrated way of saying it, within the game. But also I'm spending far more time looking at my agency and where I've contracted players out to other clubs, which I think is great. Usually I just go, is Arango playing? Has he scored? But now I'm going, has he scored? What's his match rating? Looking at how he's doing. My whole sort of, I guess, routine. My whole routine has gone up a few levels. An extra flavour, as you call it, Cal. Extra flavours to the game. There's far more flavours now. Far more flavours into the game now, which I'm loving. But I think on that first day, progression happened with that first training session. Some of us initially saw some +1 in that little green colour. We're going, hang on, why does this feel slightly too quick? And I think that was the opinion of quite a few members of the community, but we were told by MFL that obviously they're doing extensive monitoring and that's how it's expected to be. So I think maybe we've just got to sort of manage our expectations a bit. And like I've said constantly throughout this week, we're not even 20% into our first season yet, and we're trying to make conclusion on how this algorithm, how this mechanic works, trying to be the professor, the knowledgeable person at it. It's going to take a couple of seasons for us to understand how it all really works.
Yes, no, definitely. And it's good to note that there's a ton of +1s already, because if you have, let's say, a 70 rated who is 70.49 overall, right? And it just needs that little bit XP or that little stat to push him to the next overall level. So +1 is very easy. And if you see +2s, +3s already, those guys are then, I think, just more talented, or they have early prime age, or just a lot of potential. So there's multiple scenarios. Maybe they're 24 and prime age is 25, and then they suddenly develop crazy, and then it flattens out. So we have to wait to see. Quinny, did you see any guys getting better already in your agency? Did Lecoq get better? That's my main question. Did Lecoq get better?
Did he grow in size?
No, I just actually went to check there. I've not seen any +1s or anything, so I just went to click on a few screens there just to see if I'd maybe just missed something. But no, I don't think I've had any guys actually move on yet.
And also individual, not like a pace or physical.
I see it here. I've had a few actually. Now that you mention it, I've got a guy out on loan. He's got one. Yeah, I've had a few actually. No +2s or anything like you say, but a few +1s. That's actually that's quite. Yeah, that's exciting. That's quite interesting. I've got quite a few.
Yes, great. So now you also are addicted and gotta check it every 3 times per day. Did you get any +1s? I think Dio calls it the matrix. He publishes this matrix in the baller chat. I think.
Yeah, you just see this massive screen of just +1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah,
and just so much green on the screen.
It's so good to see all that green. Yeah, exactly.
One thing I would like to see, I would like to see them add is, and some people have asked for it, is because we're so addicted to seeing how many +1s we're getting and who's changing, having the last 24-hour sort of filter option, because we have the last 7 days and the last 30 days, so you can see that obviously last 7 days and last 30 days currently are irrelevant because we've not even got to that time frame yet.
Sure.
But actually, if we're playing double games a day because the cup and the in the league, and then you've got training on top of that. It'd be quite nice to see actually how did, my guy got 2 hat-tricks or so, and he had really good match rating, really good training. What did he get over the last 24 hours? So maybe a 24-hour time frame would be really good as well.
Yeah, and also a little visual to share it on social. So I shared some things, you shared some things, but then to also download it automatically would be cool. So, but I'm sure the team is on that.
So one final thing before we actually move on, because I really like this progression topic, is that what I really find interesting, or it'll be more interesting as the season goes on, is how obviously we have these sort of prediction charts and, where you're going to, which pot you were in for the league based on strength of your top 11 or so. But now actually kind of that, some of it could be irrelevant, because you could have your 11 starting players could be really, have really close prime age and go up quite quickly, and then change the balance of the league and who you're facing. What was maybe a relegation fighting team is now actually mid-table because their players have progressed quite nicely and they've been developed properly. So I think it's been really interesting, the dynamic of where, some teams who maybe we could do a before and after season, Bastiste could do, where, this was the before standing, here was the after, to see who's done well with progression, because that's going to have an influence, certainly, if we're getting +2s already, +3s on sort of the engine and in the matches that are happening at the same time.
More work for Bastiste. That's what you're saying, pretty much.
Yeah, he said his laptop's struggling already when he had to run it, so bless him.
Exactly, he already people kept asking him. But... Okay, now let's move on to the Diamond update. So yeah, for me and for Quinny, now it's a bit more fun to talk about this because we are in the Diamond League, and we lost our first game when we were watching on stream, 3-0 against Basel MFC. And actually, I don't think we should be too ashamed of it, because he's leading. He's like top of the table with 10 points.
I wonder what the odds on that were. I certainly don't think many bets placed on Basel coming top of the league after 4 games. No way. No one saw this coming.
No, exactly. So that's pretty interesting. So yeah, we should not be ashamed of that loss. Although that game, it was not super deserved, like based on XG, and McGill is supposed to be the 3rd best goalie in the whole game, and he didn't really show that. But anyway, they are Basel is first, then Meta Mercenaries, and that's the other team we lost to. So we lost 2 games so far, and it's against the number 1 and 2 of the table. So I think that's pretty good to have those 2 teams beating you. And then we had 1 victory so far against SV Berlin, Fancy Gaffer's team, who is a bit similar like us, like he has no legendaries himself, he has to do a lot of wheeling dealing to get a team. And we beat him with 4-2, which was really good. And a 1-1 against BFC Barcelona. So this means that we have 4 points and now currently 9th position, 9 out of 12. So at the end of the season, this would be a promotion relegation playoff. One playoff. But of course, that's way too early. We only had played 4 games. There are, 18 left, so still a lot to go. Quick about the other teams. Tango is there in 3rd spot, Biccione Milano 4th, Londinium 5th. So the kind of bigger teams, they are there. OM Legends didn't start off too well. I think the only big team who already lost 2 games. So for them, that's not too good, I think. Did you follow it a bit more now, Jimbo, with me and Quinny, like our team in there? Did you
certainly, yeah. I followed it a fair amount, is probably best to say, with how we mentioned on the podcast and being up to date with things. But now that yourself, Calvin, now that you're half of one of these diamond clubs, and I've got both of you on the podcast here, I've got to watch and got to keep up to date, just so I can chime in with the chime in as a journalist. If the going gets tough, I can start asking the questions. Do you feel under pressure? Bloody hell! I can start asking the questions. Do you feel under pressure as a manager? What the fans getting on your back? How are you going to react after that loss? Chumbawamba, that sort of thing.
So no critical questions today, or how would you, as a journalist, assess this?
I mean, there's arguments to be had why you didn't have Barr in the starting 11 of your first game. I think Quinny, I remember at the end of the game, sort of post-match analysis, you mentioned that why you thought maybe he would have been starting, and Calvin said, did some testing and it didn't go so well. And now he's played every single game and he's bagged in 5 goals or so, hasn't he now? So yeah, that's what happens.
No, that was a mistake from my side. I got a bit carried away, so I'll tell you why I made this choice. So I did testing against Basil and I beat him like a couple of times. So then in my mind I was like, oh, probably he knows this and now he's gonna change stuff. So I also need to react to that and do something else because otherwise he's gonna set me up with like this, like some kind of reverse psychology going on, and I kind of took it too far.
Played yourself, basically.
I got punished for it. Yes, sorry to all the fans, to all the Magos fans out there. But then I went back to the 4-4-2 diamond, and I think so far it's working pretty well. We're also very effective with the chances. Usually scoring more than an XG in almost most of the games. And Ba is really doing well. And actually his shooting went up by 1. So his shooting is now 98. So if I kept him in, he has like 100 shooting.
100
so that's
shooting.
pretty sick.
That is filthy.
That is pretty sick. So, and in the cup we played now 2 times draw 1-1. So it's not the best, but yeah, I'm going to focus more on the league. I think most teams will focus more on the league to avoid relegation, to make sure like that's like the top priority.
Yeah, I think that's a good move. No one wants to get relegated in the first place. No one wants to get relegated from the Diamond League. You know, that's like the relegation or the new Champions League setup. No one wants to be that. Not relegation, getting immediately out of the first stage sort of thing.
It's a really fun part of the game, that as well. It's kind of like more like poker, isn't it? You kind of if you have ran a few simulations, you've done a few friendlies against someone, obviously they can see it as well as you know, and or even like because everyone in the league and everyone in the cup you play twice, so there's those kind of dynamics as well. Like for the cup games, I totally rotated. The first game in the cup, I get smashed 6-1, and then the second one, which was earlier today, I actually won it 2-1. Just
nice.
The boys rallied together and made it happen, as it were. So there's definitely a few, it depends on what you're prioritising and depends on who you're against. Like with the Basel one and obviously with the Diamond League team, it's high stakes, high rewards type of stuff. Basel doesn't pull any punches and he's quite well known in a lot of circles for being a high roller. But yeah, it's a great dynamic of the leaderboards or the tables, the way they've been structured, is that, especially at that top end of the game where there's so few players at those ratings, like all the individual players are their own kind of character. Yeah. And seeing Ba on 5 goals there, just went and checked the rest of the stats. Harida, the wicked left winger, is on 3 assists as well. So he's starting to kick on a bit as well, and he's got +1s and getting even faster and even better defending.
Yeah, so exactly. We also had already 4 players in going up +1, and both strikers, Stefan and Ba, went +1. 1 defender, and we really needed a bit more defensive, like a buff. And Heredia, which is 93 to go to 94. That is really crazy because they said in the white paper everywhere, it's harder for legendary players to progress, and he already went up by 1, like after a couple of games.
That's huge.
So it's really good for us that we got a progression and that it's kind of working with Heredia, with Ba. So again, sorry for the first game, and next week hopefully we moved up the table a little bit.
Next week, go again.
Yeah, we go again. And now time for some market moves. What happened on the marketplace, and the sales bot was
busy
pretty overheated again. Sales bot in a good way. So shout out to some new managers: AJ Vitz, Novelty, FC Cheat Codes, Brian, Mr. Pitom Il, Owl Holler, Kodep, Shaggy Sepp, Champ, Bilut, Mango Juice 23, Arthur Ray, Zakos, Ninkai, Karen, Rupske, Martin Auvray, MYGBF, Justin O10, and Rick H63. And as new user of the week, I put, I don't even know how to pronounce it, this like SAH4Cal.
I always read it as Schalke, but I know it's not Schalke at all. It's not
maybe
Schalke,
it's a Schalke,
I read it as Schalke. I read it.
Shackle.
Yeah. It's probably how it's pronounced. I just see like SCH and a K. I just go
maybe
Schalke.
He's a Schalke
That's
fan.
Just natural. It could be.
It could be.
Okay,
but anyway, he just said in general that he bought his second club, and he's also a new user. So he really got the MFL buck, I think. And what's also great is that he's been helping new users already. So we see new users who joined 3 days ago are already helping new users who joined today. So it's like some kind of nice dynamic going on in general. So that's lovely to see. Then some other stories, some other market moves. Commons. Dio has been buying loads of commons. I think he got a bit addicted to this progression part, and he just is now buying like bulk a lot of comments, mostly high comments, and see probably how they will develop. So a new strategy there. Rare players, the German Aussie bought 6 rares. I wrote that he kind of woke up. He has a plat team, but he didn't register this plat team.
Yeah.
So it's going to relegate and will become a gold team. So that's pretty tough for him. But he's not giving up. He bought 6 rares, so he's definitely going to make things work later. About legendary players, Lataner 89. He bought Jörg Eder 85 overall for 300 USD. His first Lego. So great to see some players also moving into the higher segment, buying their first Legos. And clubs was quite some interesting developments. First, about 2 silver clubs. Atlas 10 bought silver club from Algeria for 99, so that's pretty low, from Noé Sark. But then Aurel Kuzo bought a silver club from Zabrze in Poland for 84. So that floor is really dropping. I don't know if they were registered, but then still for a bronze club, pretty cheap. Yeah. And I think the biggest story is Palmer, who bought Valencia Plats for 425. So that's floor also moved down, and Palmer's tried to keep them up. I think that was that's his goal.
Yeah, right? When he bought that club, they were bottom of they were projected to be relegated. Bottom. They predicted to be relegated because of the strength in their squad. But he had about 2-3 days to bolster that lineup, and he's taken them sort of like, I think it's like 2, 3, maybe even 4 places in sort of like the strength chart. So maybe into sort of that relegation playoff spot. But that's sort of the one to watch, where someone coming in, a bit like yourselves, coming into Diamond, totally new. Can Palmer come into Platinum totally new and, take what seemed to be a struggling side before ball's even been kicked and take it into a sort of mid-table and keep his position in Platinum?
Yeah, nice challenge, and it's great that he took it on. And let's see how that will develop. And now, Jimbo, stage is yours.
Cool. I don't think Quinny's quite ready for this bit yet.
I don't know if Quinny's ready for it.
I don't think Quinny knows this.
I'm always ready.
Tune. Right, here we go. Ready for Splash of the Week. So, we've actually got a name that I can pronounce for once on the stream. Usually some of these MFL players, I cannot pronounce their names at all. And the players that get bought for a lot of money have really difficult names to pronounce. But fortunately, this one I can. Abdel Fattah Jamal, 91 rated striker from Morocco, sold for $1,750. Purchased by none other than by Scrub. Yeah, our favourite user, we just say you. Purchasing him from Scrub, the hard negotiator. I think it was just before the season started, maybe the day of the league starting. 23 years old, he's a striker from Morocco, 91 rated, like I said. Some of his key stats: 93 shooting, 92 dribbling. What a combo for a striker. 87 physical, so he's a fairly sizable, strong chap up top. Won't fatigue so much. 87 passing, 87 pace, and then if you really care about it, folks, he's got 38 defending. So congratulations to you for this week's Splash of the Week.
Interesting for Diamond that the top striker of Biccione Milano, who's one of the better teams, moving to a bottom team, who is like competing against us to Samba. So our rival now got like a stronger striker, so that's a bit worrying for us. Quinny, how are you doing with market deals? Like, are you planning to buy more players? Do you want to keep the squad around? What's your plan?
I definitely am open to adding a few more guys in. I was kind of reviewing my kind of initial foray with the squad and everything yesterday and into today as well. Like I mentioned, like I quite enjoyed some of the losses just to really see see some of the weaknesses and see where like some of the weaknesses are, some of the traps in the squad. So I'm definitely up for adding in a few more pieces. But with the transfer window, I'm not in any, or the registration window or whatever, I'm not in any kind of mad rush because I don't really think I'll be missing out on much between now and whenever the next time you can register players is. So I'm quite happy to kind of, like I say, I've just been rotating between first strength and second strength for these games at the moment. But I do open up the agents tab and all the rest of it. I'm checking it every so often, but it's more a case of I'm kind of biding my time with who I've got, and then we'll see how high I get up in this league because Yeah, like, I felt that, I said this to you on the stream, but I felt that I've got like 370, I've got 470s in my team, and bearing in mind I'm in like the ice division or whatever, which is really low. And I felt that once I got the fourth one into the squad, the really bad players by comparison seemed to play even worse, if you know what I mean. So I'm a wee bit nervous of like just going and getting another 3 guys, and then all of a sudden like 5 guys become really crap by comparison, you know. So I'm still trying to work out the balance of some of the bits and bobs, and really what position is the most pertinent. Like, where should I spend a good couple of quids, like getting pre-prime age guy, what position, what sort of stats do I like, what sort of stats do I need. So I'm definitely still like open to it. I had a few guys that I got into the club that I didn't end up registering for the season. I managed to get them loaned out, so I've seen a few of them actually like progress and stuff as well, which was quite cool when we were on that tab earlier. And Shaforko, or Shako, as you mentioned there, he's he's a good friend of my community. Certainly, he's a good guy, and I seen he picked up one of my left backs for his team as well. So I think he had a bit of a scramble to get in before the deadline closed. And I say, since that's came in, it's just kind of, for me, I don't know if that's bad practice, maybe you guys will correct me, maybe I'm missing a trick here, but I've just been a bit more like arm's distance, or arms, I'm not sending offers all the time, and I'm not like constantly going through all the filters and all the stat changes like I was like maybe a week ago or something, but I'm still kind of keeping an eye open.
Okay. Well, we have another also drop coming, and then we have a tiny 3-day window when you can sign. I think, Jimbo, I'm not totally sure if it's like next week. I think. So
it's not next week. So the pack drop and the opening day of the mid-season transfer window is Wednesday the 27th. So that's when the transfer window opens and the pack drop. And then the Thursday, the Friday, it's also opened. And the Saturday, if it's the same as it was for the transfer window this week, it will probably be sort of, 11 a.m. our time, Quinny, Calva for you, 12, sort of midday. So essentially you've got, 3 days? Yeah, 3 days to pick up some extra players to bolster your agency.
Yeah, and I think you have three transfers per squad.
Yes, yeah,
that guys in.
Really well reminded. Yeah, you can't just swap out all your 25 players either. As much as you may want to if you're struggling or, etc. You can only make 3 transfers, which is really nice. None of this sort of your whole team changes and suddenly someone who's bottom of the league does a Man City after Christmas and just wins 30 on the bounce sort of thing. Fortunately, there are some mechanisms put in place to prevent that from happening, which is great.
So, no IRL MFL this week because we have so much more to talk about later with Quinny. But of course, Quinny needs to put a beer in our community top 3. So last season we had candy bar top 3, chocolate bar, and now we have a beer top 3. And our last guest, Sam Moves, he put a Radler, no brand, just in general Radler, beer from Germany, as 1. Bastiste put a beer from Marseille, Fada, there. And then Jimbo, you have your neck oil Beavertown on the first spot. So, Quinny, you can kick out one of those and put in a great beer of choice. So, what's your favorite beer, and then where would you put it?
Well, just as you're ready for the needle to jump across the record on this one, I actually don't like beer. I don't drink beer at all.
Okay.
I feel like I could sense that coming. I don't know what. I could tell by your face. I was like, I feel like he's not a beer drinker.
No, I'm a cider guy, if anything. I'm not a big drinker in general, but yeah, if I'm drinking something, it'll probably be cider or tequila. So if I had to pick a beer, I would pick the Scottish beer, which is Brewdog. But I don't feel I would be able to kick out the right beer, if that makes sense. So, I don't know if you want to take my suggestion, but yeah.
Well, maybe we could for this particular episode we could increase the our scope to include cider, so you could chop one in, but on the base maybe someone could then chuck in a beer in replacement of it. So
we already, the Radler is already not, it's like beer kind of mixed with
that's good something in it, doesn't it?
Yeah, so then the cider we can also just add cider.
Okay, yeah, we'll back the cider, so you can put whatever your favourite cider is, first, second or third. That's where you can put it. Please not third. I want to keep my beer in there.
Okay. I was going to put it third, but if it keeps yours, then I'll go second. Then that's fine. I don't like kicking yours off.
What a man!
So I'll go second. My favourite cider kind of changes month to month. To be honest with you, so I don't drink too often. But I'd probably say if I was only to get one, I'd probably take a bottle of Magners. If I was to take only one.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes, but I don't mind a can. Sometimes I don't mind a pint out the draft, but it's all about the seasons, I suppose. But I'd go with a bottle of Magners, and I'd slide that into second on top of whatever was there before.
Okay, yeah,
the French.
So we'll
beer,
replace it.
French
It was this local beer from Marseille that was put in by Bastis. So quite interesting. We have now in our beer top 3 a Radler, which is not really a beer, then a cider, and then third is Jimbo's.
And then Necco was kind of an IPA, so it depends.
But it will be fun. Like, people can correct it. We will have enough guests to maybe put some other things in there. So time for our main part, the manager spotlight. So we'll put Quinny in this spotlight. You already heard from him, and now we're gonna find out much more. So let's kick off with our usual question is, what's your MFL journey? How it's been so far? Or how did you find out about MFL? But maybe because of the content you make and your whole, let's say, how you talk about football, etc. I was wondering, okay, tell us more like about that journey, about football and then Web3 and Web3 gaming.
So I've obviously been in this space for like a number of years now at this point, and I've kind of seen a lot of different football-based projects around for a fair length of time. And I'm always the sort of person where, like, especially in Web3, so I don't, like, Sorare is also what most people kind of recognise with my content and all the rest of it. But when it comes to like NFTs and like crypto and all the rest of it, I've got a few other things that I've kind of played with, messed around in, collected over the period. And I always try and keep myself, because of how I found Sorare and ultimately how I came across MFL, I've always tried to keep it centred in something that I have taken from my real world life or experience somewhere else. So with Sorare, it was a kind of a combination of other stuff I'd been playing and involved with before, as well as actually a lot of what MFL kind of brings to the party for me a little bit. And it's that case of like, I'm a bit of a football, like I'm a deep end football fan. I'm a bit of a football romantic, and like I just get absorbed by football, the storylines, the clubs, the rise, the fall of everything. And for me, so with MFL, like with it being the way it's built, of course, already on Web3 and everything's fantastic. The way you can obviously have everything tracked on the blockchain and all the rest of it, I think is the future of gaming kind of period, to be honest with you. Like for anyone, I think that has been a part of playing computer games over the last 15 years will see how huge in-game purchases are, number one. Number two, like how attached you can be to create a character in any game, the story mode you've completed, the guy you've maxed out the levels, you've upgraded all your equipment, you've did all the site, people get attached to all these things. So I think like firmly like that is a thing, like Web3 and all the stuff that we kind of are involved in this regard is going to be like the future, like building blocks of games for me in a big way. So with MFL, like I grew up like a Football Manager kid. Like I played Football Manager like every week in our God sent for like all of high school essentially. So much so that when I started working, like I had to actually like not like see when my last computer or laptop or whatever seemed like clapped in, I couldn't buy another one because I was like, if I buy another one, it's just going to happen again. I'm going to get another. I'm going to get it again, and you get to a period in your life where you need to kind of knuckle down and work a bit harder at stuff. Or some people go to uni. I didn't do that. I just went into work myself, so I had to kind of take myself away from it. And that led me to doing football coaching. Like I went and got UEFA badges. I was a first team coach for a few years until COVID happened, and I've kind of used that as a convenient gap in my CV, and all this other stuff has kind of went well. So number one, like I've always just been open to this kind of stuff being like a gaming experience I want to be a part of, just as I don't know if it's philosophical or whatever you want to think of it as, but I just see it being the space to be involved in, like I still play my PS5 and still do other bits and bobs, of course, but that's the first part. So with Sorare, it had its own thing, and with MFL, it firmly does just kind of catch on to that Football Manager angle of it. And Football Manager for me probably won't ever translate into Web3 the way that MFL is kind of occupying the space, as it were, because Football Manager is based on the real world, it's based on clubs, it's based on selling a new copy every year. You've even seen with the delay that they've had this year that they need to sell a new copy every year. Like it's a contractual part of their agreements and everything that they do. So it is always going to be what it is, and that's obviously they've got their own advantages by having like such a robust game and all the, so I remember thinking about it quite deeply one time when I was in high school, maybe around 16, 17, and it's feasibly one of the biggest calculators anyone's ever made, that game, just for what it does and how powerful it is and whatever. It's a great bit of kit. But for me as a player of anything, and especially when it comes to sports-related, football-related games, you always want to have that, create a character. Your club in this case is what it is. You know, you're kind of, you're a part of it. It's you in the game. It's not just, oh yeah, I was Chelsea manager and I won the Champions League like every other tip that's out there. You know what I mean? Or I went Wrexham and did the whole, you know, Brian Reynolds thing before Ryan Reynolds was even a thing. Everyone done that, I think, once or twice, didn't they? And you know, that's just, you know, that's fun and it's a game, but it's kind of, that has a shelf life for me. Like, you know, I played Football Manager for a long time, probably would have played it a lot more in general terms, but like, you can't only do the same thing so many times. And I feel with this, because number one, like the players are different, the club is yours. Like I was saying to Calva when we were on my stream, like, you know, a big part of this for me is like the internal narrative that you have with your club, your players, where you are in the league, how crap the last result was, how good the next one's going to be, or whatever. So I just really liked everything that MFL kind of had to offer in that regard. And when I spoke to Mafur and Matt, the owner of the company and everything, he was very well spoken in the sense of like, it's not just the Football Manager game part of it, but it's more like it's its own universe, it's its own kind of space. It's not the real world trying to just skin up differently or whatever, or do something different. It's more like, obviously you guys have said the word agency a bunch of times in this show today, and that's like quite a common part of the zeitgeist here. So you're not just like picking the team and the tactics and all that, maybe deciding the transfers and stuff, but you do agent in this as well. You do own players and loan them out and stuff like that, and I'm sure there's more innovations coming in that way as well. Where even like me and Calvert are doing this whole Diamond League thing, and I know that's something that they as a company are like, they would embrace. Like, you know, so I can't remember the exact wording of it, so I won't try and quote him or anything. But you know, he's talking about like the value of like a friend group running a club. You know what I mean? And like, someone is just hustling the contracts, someone is hustling the tactics, someone's doing this, someone's doing that, and everyone can play this in their own way in that regard, you know. And again, it's you tying into like, this is our club or this is my club, or you know, doing that kind of thing. So I just think like overall as a Web3 proposition and like the game itself, like I'm not going to claim to, you know, have read into the future and all this kind of stuff on it or anything like that, you know, but it's fun, it's easy to pick up and play. And it's, again, very much something that I've taken from the real world that is Web3. And I think like a lot of the things that do struggle in NFT land and Web3 in general is they're trying to make something up and then go, we've got a game or we've got an NFT, try it out and love it, or tell everyone that you love it or whatever. Whereas I think the things that always do well are the ones that just move things on. They are just like evolutionary. They take something from Web 1 or 2 into the future kind of part of it, if that makes sense. And that's why, again, like the Sorare thing makes sense, because it's like cards. You can't, if you own cards, like nowadays, like everything's on the internet, actual paper cards, you can't, you know, they're very limiting if you want to engage with them and play games or
print
do
out
something.
your Sorare cards and have to map out your SO5 lineup on paper.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it wouldn't be the same thing, you know, or even, so again, provable scarcity, like again with the players, you know, who's owned them, you can see like, you know, their career and all this kind of thing with this game as well. But yeah, I always like things that take from the real world and move it on somewhat. Like some other NFTs I own are comic books. I've got an app called VV, which I've got no affiliation to or anything like that. It's just a daft thing. But
I think I've heard of that before, yeah.
Yeah, they're quite big, but you cannot withdraw from it as far as I understand. But they've got a lot of like Marvel IP, Star Wars IP, and they do like comics and like figures, but it's metaverse figures, so they're like 3D and AR, and you can take pictures with it and stuff and whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it's just goofy, whatever. But again, that's like a real world thing, you know, that I think these are the things that will do well over time, probably.
Yeah, no, definitely. And what you say is like, it's really immersive, right? About your narratives, and that you're really building a club and you're dealing with real players, like other people. Well, it's part of a game, right? But I'm almost like, with what you said about hustling, like the contracts, I was really like hustling, sending so many messages everywhere. And it's really way cooler, than just leading Chelsea to another Champions League title in FM with like, it's just, you're playing against a real calculator. Like you said, it's the biggest calculator. That's what you're playing against. So I can imagine that you really have to smash your football, real coach, and then combine that with such games like Sorare and in the real world, and this in its own metaverse, right? Kind of ecosystem. So yeah. And Jimbo.
And you know, in MFL you can't just sort of load up your most recent save and go again if the results don't go your way. You've just got to firm it and go, well, actually, I was crap that game. I got somehow be better for next game.
Yeah, no saves coming.
Much more of an honour system in that way, isn't there? You know that you know when someone's taking Wrexham from the Conference to the Champions League final. Right, okay, how many times did you turn that one off? You know, in the last game of the season when you had to get the points, or the semi-final in the second leg or whatever. So yeah, there's definitely a bit more clout in it in that way. And I like the way they've structured the divisions as well. It's quite clever, you know, in terms of, you know, the different strengths and the different rewards and whatnot. So yeah, I've been impressed with it overall. Quite glad I found it.
Great.
Yeah, I think that the big piece around like lore and clubs and owning it yourself, you know, we see there's a huge amount of users or managers who have their clubs and have social media accounts, whether it be Instagram, whether it be X, and that's great because there's all these templates that you can share with it, you know, like your Magos de Madrid, for example, and it's great to see that sort of side to it, and sort of people actually build their club. I'm a Norwich fan, and my Wents and Wyverns are based in Norwich, and that was there's now another Norwich club when they did some more minting, but that was the first Norwich club, and I felt extremely connected to it, and that will never leave I'll never sell it, regardless of whatever happens. That's never going anywhere because I feel like such a deep connection with it because I've made the account. I've done all my research into it. It's one of the local rivers that runs through and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, no, I love it. And we've done branding episodes before about, you know, going into the history or the geographical or some sort of element to do with the location. And the amount of effort people put into these as well, like the AI or just the background of the clubs is so great. And that really just embeds that connection with it, and underpinning it all is is playing against someone, I think, as well, that whole community aspect and that zero sum game, I've called it, where, you know, you could win 3-0, the other side of that result is someone else who's crying their eyes out, they've just lost 3-0, and that's great sort of thing. I love that. That's why I'm so excited for these emotions of promotion relegation this season, because I think some friends will be made, and I think some villains will also be created for some people as well, some arch enemies.
Real drama. Well, maybe speaking about the branding and identity, can you tell us a bit about Barça Lomond? I see in the background, if people are watching the video, a certain Barça legend. So you have obviously a connection with it. And Lomond, where does it come from? Or is it?
So Lomond. So in Scotland, we don't have lakes; we have lochs.
Yeah.
And the biggest loch in the world is Loch Lomond. It's not the biggest lake, of course, but it's just a bit of a it's a bit of a Scottishism. But so yeah, Loch Lomond is the biggest lake or the biggest loch in Scotland, and it's very close to where I live. It's very picturesque. If you're ever in Scotland, it's one of the places to go down to. Very nice places all around it. I go there once to twice a month, most of the way through the year, depending on the weather and stuff, for a variety of things. But just love it, to be honest with you. My club Barcelona on this has been placed in Dumbarton. The guys at NFL were gracious enough to allow me to select where it would go. And I asked them. They said what city? Dumbarton's not a city; it's a town. But I asked them, and I'm so surprised that they actually done it because it's not a city. I thought they'd have been quite limited to what they could have entered, but they managed to do it. Dumbarton's really close to Loch Lomond. If any of you are ever in the neighbourhood and you're trying to get there, that's probably the way to go about it. And when I was like younger, I think I must have been about 17 or 18 or something like that. Barcelona came to Scotland to do a pre-season, like play a couple of matches kind of thing. And it was one of Messi's first years. I think Henry was in the squad. I can't remember when, but it was like, pretty vintage Barca. And there was a youth team in Dumbarton, not in Dumbarton, sorry, Balloch, which is next door to Dumbarton. But from a map, if any of you guys were looking at it, you'd say it's the same place, but it's not. And they were called Barcelona. That was the name of the youth club. And when Barca came over, like they'd somehow got in touch with each other or whatever, and they took all the kids over to Dundee because they played Dundee United. And I forget who they played 2 matches, but one of them was Dundee United, and we took all the kids over and they got pictures with them and all that, and it made like news. That was the only reason I'd heard of them, because I was like 17 or 18. I wasn't playing under-8 football. I didn't have any kids or anything, obviously. So, and it was just when I heard it, I was like, that is like my fantasy football team for life now, no matter what, if you get me. And then, I've just always used it. I like it. I think it's a nice kind of play on words, Barcelona.
Yeah, definitely.
I just think it works really nicely. So that's just where it comes from. The icon is my dog, who sadly is no longer with me. I lost my dog a few months ago now, which was, as many of you guys, if anyone has pets, they'll know, like it's So losing a member of the family, it was brutal.
Yep.
I had him for like, I won't get into it, so I started crying, but I've had him for like 13 years or something. His name was Spud. And when I designed the logo in the first place, I was like, I want my dog on it. 'Cause he's a West Highland Terrier. And West Highlands is Loch Lomond, it's the west of Scotland where the Highlands are, whatever. So that's the badge. As for the colours, I've got no idea where the colours came from, but try to stay away from like anything Rangersy blue, and try to stay away from anything that's Celtic green. And that's kind of where I came out with. I didn't want to go black and yellow because I don't know, tried to get something a little bit different, as it were. So yeah, that's the background on the club, I suppose, how it got branded.
Yeah. It's really amazing to hear, and I love all the connections and all the history and football, and your dog, and like it's also all very meaningful to you, and that's your club and that's your identity, and that's like, so as Jimbo is connected to Norwich, you're super connected to that club now, so that's amazing. So I had a question about like your season 1. I was been going so far, but I think we already kind of talked a bit about it, but maybe it's more interesting to ask you, like, now looking back at your kind of first month playing MFL, if you would have done anything differently, and also us SR Monkey, who you know probably, has asked like if you made any early mistakes in the game that could have been avoided. So if you now look back at this past month, would you have done something differently? Did you make any mistakes?
I don't think I made any catastrophic errors, but I definitely did everything the wrong way around because MFL had like gifted me a club and gave me some packs to get started with and all the rest of it. The first thing I was going to do with that was make a video, like unboxing it and just watching all the animations and just seeing everything that comes out and see what you're left with, which is fine. But from there, like I got proper, like quite bitten by it quite quickly. And then I went into the market and I bought 4 players, all averaging around $18 or so, all under 20, that kind of range. And then, so basically I ended up doing that, and then later on discovering a bit better the free agency and how all the contract stuff works, as well as like the starter packs are exclusive. You get a few of them allotted to you when you first open your account. And I basically did everything the wrong way around, so if I'd just opened the stuff as they gave me it, and then waited a wee minute to just like compose myself and try and like see my way around everything, I would have bought the packs next, and they would have been like $7 each or something very nominal. And then the amount of money I would have spent on players probably wouldn't have changed, but I might have got an extra player, or I might have maybe even bought an extra pack, one of those standard player ones, depending on the way things were sitting or whatever. And I think because of that, like as I mentioned to you, I rotated in my first cup game and I got smashed 6-1. And when I was looking at that rotated team, I was like, I knew I needed 2 teams worth of like cover or whatever, but I've just been too like bull in the china shop and all over the place. Like, go get this guy, go get that guy, and then that kind of thing. So a sequence of events would have helped me a lot more than like I just didn't buy a goalkeeper or something like that,
It's a bit like when you get a game for the first time and you go straight into it and you go, actually, there's an instruction manual on the box here, which would have helped me if I had to do these things. And you sort of like went, no, I'm just going to go straight into the campaign and just go for it.
Yeah, so I was quite conservative on how much I want. Whenever I did go into like trying to get players in, I was very nervous on giving away percentage on stuff. So I was just quite like, oh, I don't want to give away too much. What if I win and all that? I don't want to split it with somebody, basically. But when you kind of see the way the game works, and obviously, like, if you're not winning, you're not splitting anything, so you're kind of, you need to go for it in some regards, So I think, maybe been a bit more confident or a bit more willing to just put a bit on the table, maybe to try and get another player in at the last minute, or to get a better quality of player. Because being in nice division, it's actually kind of hard to get good players in.
Yeah, we've all found when the transfer window first opened, you might have like a rare player, or somebody have legendary players, and suddenly they're getting offers from ice divisions being like, can I have your legendary for like 5%? And it's like, no, he's not going to ice or whatever, but because they wanted to hamper the you might as well cheeky, they could misclick it and suddenly you're there with, oh hey, I've got him for 3 seasons and he's only got to play 10 games or so. But yeah, the scouting and that agency piece is fantastic. So for new users, if you want to go look at new players actually having to go purchase them yourself, that scouting tool is fantastic for that.
Yeah, it is really But like, yeah, those things you find out. If like a lot of people do this, I think they just go straight club pack, buy some packs, and then they get started, and then they buy 25 players, and then they found out there's also all scouting, and then you need to get that feeling for rev share and which players can go where and how can I approach this. And also people keep sending offers. While I think just chatting to guys on Discord is a much more effective way of getting guys, or like we were talking like, oh, actually I have another striker you can maybe get, and then that's how you also build squads. But then for season 2, so much more already how to build that squad. We also would like to ask you a bit about content creation. So you said you already made some unboxing, opening some packs, right, on some videos. We did the stream. Are you planning like more MFL content, or what do you think in general? What kind of content would be great for MFL to make?
Earlier today I recorded top 3 beginner mistakes.
Interesting.
So that was kind of on the tip of my tongue, that one already. Because that was like the most obvious part of me looking back at where I'm at and what I'd kind of got together or whatever. And I think like, I don't know, outside of that, generally, like I think the most engaging part of content for me when it comes to like whenever it's stuff that I watch is fun, is that there's stuff happening, there's different bits and pieces going on. Like we did the live show for the first game of the season, which I had a lot of fun with, and I think there's definitely a lot of scope to do that sort of thing for like opening games of the season, big rival matches potentially. Like we played each other, Calva, in our league. You've been very kind not to bring it up and rub my face in it. But we played each other the other day with your ice team, and you beat me 2-1 in that game, and I was bitterly disappointed at that, by the way, I must admit. But that type of stuff I think's got there's a lot of room for that in the space, as long as it's like good-hearted kind of community stuff and people kind of know who's involved in the leagues and whatever. So I like the idea of that. And I think also in general, like it's kind of about game progress. Like you guys did a great job at the beginning of the show of going through like some of the updates and some of the new things that are happening. And yeah, for a game that's evolving, I think like any developments and any kind of little pro tips, sneaky hints and tips and tricks, these are the type of things that, I'm always interested in trying to spot or make or anything like that. And that's kind of the same here, I suppose. But in general, like, so I'll have that beginner mistakes kind of thing come out and we'll see how it kind of goes from there. But generally, like, I'll be looking to keep everyone kind of updated with the squad, as it were. Shackle or Shaforko or whatever, Hoodwink, Monkey. There's a bunch of people that are kind of like in the community already, or that came to the community alongside, obviously, FC Barcelona getting kicked off. That I'm sure with cups and with leagues and promotions and all the rest of it, that like you guys have been mentioning, I've been really enjoying listening to as well on this one and the last podcast you did as well, that there's like a narrative in here. It is like a metaverse situation for like these football teams and these leagues and all the rest of it. And it's content that's for a community rather than content that's like, it's not really some the content that will probably be made on the regular is for people that are got their hands dirty playing it, know it, and it's like it may be a for podcast situations like this perhaps, like and if he did mention it, might have been over my head earlier, sorry, just for some of the names and whatever, but like maybe like big headline shock stuff that happens, like Basel get relegated, we can only hope, or stuff like that. It's always good to kind of track and follow the acquisition of new clubs, like you mentioned. There might be some good stuff in that, like people that take on new clubs, new projects, and that sort of thing. But I think the content in general is always going to be first person shooter style, isn't it? It's going to be you and your club and any things you're trying that other people can adopt, or other lessons you've learned that other people can try and dodge.
Yeah. We've found really good success on like the streaming side to it, like you mentioned right at the start of that piece there, because a lot of the games, they are live and can be watched live. There is something about, especially if you're streaming one of your games and you've got people in the community watching that stream who have players on that squad that you own, and there's almost that that there's more on the line there. And we've found, whether we've done the pack drop streams or we've done the cup finals, people will tune in for it because they just want to be like match of the day sort of thing. You just chill and watch the games that are going on, or you all get together with your mates because your local team's not playing at home, they're playing away, so you get together around the TV and you watch football. It's got that sort of element to it, which is really, really great.
And again, what you said about like the stories and the narratives, and then you just talk about Barcelona, and now you can go up, you can go down, you can get those guys in, they develop, so there's way more stories to be told. So I think that's also a big part. I will also try to do that a bit more, I think, with my channel, to do a bit more stories and see what are my choices, what are my goals. And I think people can get invested in that and they want to keep like following that. So it's indeed very great content, I think, to make. Speaking about stories and following, Hootwink asked, which player in your agency do you have the highest hopes for, like to be the star of Barcelona? Well, I think there's one guy I know who's going to be the star. But do you have some talents or some hope for someone?
Well, Big Emmanuel Lecoq has definitely been the star of the show at Barcelona. 20-year-old striker, rated 74 at the moment. So it's kind of hard to look past him. I was quite excited about another guy, but then I realised I don't actually own him. I've only got him for the season. And yeah, outside of that, I've actually got a little left back that I'm quite excited for. He's 22 bucks. I don't know how much better he can get. He's 66 rated. Again, how high will he actually get for it to be that interesting or whatever? I don't know. I think Lecoq's the easy one in terms of a player that I think I'll be using for a fair length of time with him being easily the best player in the squad at the moment. But I've got a guy that I got for, like, because I've been sharing like my referral link obviously with videos and stuff. I've had a few like comments come through from people that like click and do that kind of thing. None of them have been that great, to be honest with you. But I've got one guy that's came out a 55 rated comment, and he's a Belgian winger called Thomas Muller. And
oh, that's nice.
Like, he's actually plays great. Like, his stats aren't that particularly good. You know, I think is he quick? No, 69 pace, passing 62. Everything else is under 49. Like, he's not good, but he scores all the time. Like, he's quite effective for some reason. So if I was to have a random player, like maybe just hang on to the coattails of the squad if we climb up divisions or whatever, I'd maybe back him to keep his place in the squad until he retires, maybe, if he keeps this up. But yeah, that's the best answer I've got.
So Lecoq and then Thomas Müller.
Yeah.
the metaverse Thomas Müller. It sounds like him almost, right? Like you think he's bad, but actually he's good.
Yeah.
So that's just like Thomas Müller, so it's like very realistic. It's great.
Right, I love this username, by the way. Massive Ericsson. Cracking name. Massive Ericsson. So he said, Quinny, if you ran MFL for a day, what would be the change you would make? What thing would you add, and what thing would you remove? I think that's a hell of a question.
The thing I would add is team talks, at the very least. Like, I'd add at least some sort of team talk function, even if it's just pre-match, like you just set it, like the same way you do with your tactics. If they still want to keep the same sort of match engine we've got now, so I would definitely add that. What I would remove...
The remove one's a really tough question.
That is a tough one. What would I remove? What would I remove? That's a tough one. If I could do anything, I'll kind of come back to that. If I could do anything, I would upgrade the engine a little bit. So I don't think anyone's ever been offside in any match I've played, you know, which feels funny. I don't know, call me crazy, but somebody's got to be offside at some point.
I think that's an interesting one, actually, because Calvin, correct me if I'm wrong here. Obviously, there are offsides in the engine, but when you have highlights, the highlights aren't offsides, are they? I've rarely seen a highlight that's offside.
Sometimes you have a highlight starting with another offside. So there's like, it starts with an offside, and then there's like a free kick, and then from there. But also there's never a goal disallowed, right? It's never, you score, you go, I scored, and then offside disallowed. Like that kind of emotional roller coaster you sometimes have in real football. So it would be fun to add that, to it.
Yeah, that kind of thing for sure. I think it's a miss at the moment. So if I could do anything, I would do that. If I could add something, it would be team talks. And if I could remove one thing, I don't know, I want to say something that stops people just not responding to your offer somehow. You know, like I did send a few offers that just expired, and I thought, like, that was an acceptable offer. The guy hasn't even accepted anyone's offer, so there's not really anything you can do about that, sadly. And as you say, remove is kind of a tough one anyway, at the best of times, even for you guys. So
you almost say you should remove whole users who are inactive. That's what you want to
remove. Inactive users.
Remove all active users, or do something with them. Remove their players, or
remove the lack of push notifications that make your phone vibrate endlessly until you open it up and respond.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, good one. Duff also had a question, so one more listener question. He said, we'd love to hear more about your choice to join the MFL community. We already heard about it. But it's also he wants to know where you think the project is now compared to where it could be when we're in season 5 and 10. So it's like a little bit speculation where you see it going from like a gameplay standpoint, an evolution of the community MFL ecosystem. So this is a bit like you have a crystal ball, 5-10 years. Any predictions? I think based on what you said, like you're pretty hopeful from what you were sharing earlier about the different ingredients this game has to make it successful.
I definitely think the metaverse part of all this is definitely something to be leaned into in that way. Like, I do like the fact that it is all encompassing. And again, I can't remember any specifics, or I would at least try and share a bit of them. But speaking to the guys that run the company and everything like that, like, they do have quite lofty ambitions for how they could flesh some pieces of this out. And I think like if they're able to do that, like really like all the things I kind of believe or think around all this sort of gaming that we mentioned earlier in the podcast, like if you walk it all the way down the path to their natural conclusion, like you do get into a sort of VR, AR sort of spectrum of a metaverse where it is like Decentraland. There's one of these places where there's a casino down the road, and then there's 4 restaurants, and then there's a football stadium, and whose football team is maybe in it, or and it's that's kind of like the nth degree of all this where it could go. And that's not just on MFL, it's a kind of space thing more than anything, the Web3 space and all the work that goes into that and any advancements that could be made. So like I do think that's something that's got in its favour, that it can be quite open. Like it could be something that could quite easily like expand itself out in terms of its scope. It's not just football management, but it's also that agency part of it. And then you can go into like there's it's football, which is a full industry, so you really could open that up quite quickly, quite easily with enough motivation and I guess inspiration, so 5 years from now, like it could be like, again, it all depends on the work that they put in the background or whatever, but it could be like that kind of game where it's a level above. It's quite a sophisticated football manager, kind of football management game is probably the better way of putting it, where it isn't just about the club, but it is a bit more about like being in the space and stuff like that. But games like that are quite taxing, as it were. Like one of the things I do like about it is relatively passive. Like I can log in, like you guys are in a bit more often than me, and that'll probably change. I'll probably be up to speed with you guys in no time.
It will happen. It's not a when. It's a when. It's a when.
But I've had a few days where I've like slogged it, and I've been on for like a good couple of hours just tweak stuff, game. But certainly like every day I'll definitely click onto it for 30-40 minutes at a minimum. And I think that's a big part of the appeal of it as well. It's like a daily thing where it's like, I can spend a wee hour on MFL now, like catching up with watch my game, how did people do, and do that kind of thing. So there's a bit of a tightrope to walk in everything I'm saying here, I suppose. But I do think, the scope of what the game could become in 5 years is something to be excited about.
Definitely.
We agree.
We're all on the same page here. Yeah. Exactly. We all think it is the same. And what you said about expanding, like also people have been talking about merch, right? Like everyone likes to have now merch of their own teams or shirts or other related things, or even maybe get sponsors in and just really expand that. I've heard about some things like this. Like people really have already, I don't know, like the Dad's Company, whatever, right? You can really maybe put it in the game on tiny shirts or a stadium banner. Sky's the limit. So there's really potential to make it even more immersive.
I've got one final question before we go into our previous guest question, and this came from the Bosco company. It kind of relates to where we sort of finished with that chat just then. His question was, what feature would Quinny like to see adopted next by MFL team? And he sort of listed off a few here, obviously not excluding. National teams, stadium, development, coaches, NFTs. obviously yellow and red card bans would be nice. Obviously for some people maybe not, because if their centre half gets sent off every other game, it's going to be a bit frustrating. But are there any things that you've thought whilst playing the game over the last couple of weeks that you'd gone, cool, I'd really like that to be added next?
I think stadiums could be a good one in terms of something you'd want to make an NFT kind of element out of as well. Like I kind of alluded to there with the whole kind of metaverse angle of it. Like I think stadiums could be a good one, but it's maybe not one you want to do prematurely if that's the kind of scope that they did want to lean into. Suspensions feels like an easy one to just add in at some point. It's just a kind of engine based thing. But also when I say stadiums, like I'm also thinking about being younger. And I remember when stadiums came into FM for the first time, and it was a bit different, the match engine, and it was like, oh, you can see the fans kind of, just 2D kites almost, little posters of people, and it makes that crowd noise when it goes off for a goal. It makes it hit a bit harder, it makes it drive home a little bit. So I definitely think you'd get a good win from that, certainly. I can't remember the other options, but suspensions is an easy one, probably. Once they've got mechanics for the game engine to sort out for it. Yeah. And I like stadiums in a lot of ways. Yeah. Basically are advanced, stadiums, but yeah.
It would be really fun. You have your own name of stadium. See the fans like in the color of your team. Some
see
sponsors.
See them leave at halftime when you're 3-0 down, that sort of thing. that level of depth, start shouting. You wave fans singing, you're getting sacked in the morning on a big away day.
And then you can wave with tiny handkerchiefs, like these white, right? What they do in Madrid, tiny ones, waving.
I think they do that in Valencia as well, the white hat. Maybe it's a Spanish thing, but yeah, that could be cool. You also gave me an idea as well there, maybe the ability to upload like a 30-second audio track, or maybe 3 30-second audio tracks, so you could have like a couple of songs, you could have like Sacked in the Morning, bit of banter or something, or... you can maybe upload that sort of thing. Any good chance? Like, who are you? Or, just some fun stuff, And then because you're uploading your own one, or you're maybe choosing from a library that they would have of 20 or something, like your stadium will, if it's the right combination of stuff, it'll be a little bit different to everyone else's, wouldn't it?
Yeah, really cool.
Somebody's got drums going, someone's got a vuvuzela, like, could really mix that up.
You get some wacky ones like in America, like Portland Timbers, and they have the big chainsaw with the big tree. Like, let's bring that. Maybe that's regional. Maybe if you're in America, or if you've got a Spanish club, you have the hanky chiefs. Maybe it's maybe it's a regional thing. That's also another thing we like to get onto.
More flavour, Jim.
More flavour. Exactly.
More flavour.
They're baking this game, and they're really transparent with how they create it, because we get dev updates every Friday, and we can see this lovely pie of MFL with the new flavours being added to it, and we can see it baking in the oven.
Yes. Exactly.
You get a little taste test.
So we've been recording already hour 15. So let's move on to the final recurring question from our last guest, and then Quinny will ask a question to our next guest. So Samus was the last guest we had in our studios, and he asked, would you rather have one club that gets promoted every season, or 2 clubs that promote every other season? Let me also add or rephrase a little bit. Would you rather have maybe one club and go for a bit more quality, or then have multiple clubs, more like the quantity approach? Like, well, I'm a bit like guilty of that. Some people even more. But what would you say?
My kind of mantra and a lot of what I've been involved in for the last couple of years has been, make sure you've got one team that can win. As long as you've got one team that's winning, you'll be happy at the very least, and then you go from there. So I'm going to take one team that gets promoted every year.
Okay, fair enough.
I was going to say, from a Sorare point of view, there's nothing worse when you've got 2 or 3 lineups that if you just combine them together and pick the players from each, you'd get your perfect score. But no, you've somehow captained the guy who's got 150 with his score, and then he's with a bunch of like 40 scores. You want to have that one team that you can bank on to win and do well.
So more quality approach then. And what would you like to ask our next guests? Do you have a question? Something you're curious about?
I was in 2 minds to do a kind of jokey one or do a serious one. So with the question you've asked, I think that's kind of somewhere in the middle. So I will ask the next guest the question of, I'm trying to think of how to put this. I was thinking about saying it in a funny way or not, but I'm not really coming up with it. So I'm going to say, I'll ask the next guest just quite simply, where does he think Magos de Madrid is going to finish in the table? Is Calva, are the handkerchiefs going to be coming out? Or or will there be some unexpected glory? Is this Claudio Ranieri in the making, or where are we at? So yeah, I'll ask for a season prediction on Magos de Madrid for whoever's next week.
That's a really interesting one, because then you're going to get like the fans come on and think, speak to the manager and say, I think we're going to win the league, or he goes, "Cool, you could be out of the job in a few weeks' time, mate. You could might get a fan come on here and be brutally honest to the manager." But I love that question. I love that.
Yeah, great one.
You either get an answer you really like, or you get an answer you don't really like.
Yeah.
No, I'm curious, and that's also fun, right? That's like the prediction game and expectations, seeing how people do, the pressure mounting, all part of the game. So,
or the funny question is, would you rather fight 12 squirrel-sized crocodiles, or would you rather fight one crocodile-sized squirrel?
Well, if we get Taggart on next week, this is an amazing question, because he has a whole squirrel-based team.
Yeah.
So we can keep that in. That's a nice one for him. So now we do need to get Taggart. So if you're listening, Taggart, join us next week to answer this.
He'll be like, I've got to come on now to ask about
question.
squirrels. Oh, he'll love that. He'll love that.
Yes.
So we're getting to that point in the podcast again where we tell you the hashtag. And as always, the hashtag is to prove that you've been listening to the end or to this part of the podcast. So this week's hashtag, we're going to give you a choice. We like sometimes these choice and optional hashtags. Hashtag hankies out or hashtag hankies in. Did I get that right, chaps? Hankies in, hankies out?
Yes.
For some reason, hankies... Sometimes
and do we also connect it to my future at Magos, if you think, if they're out already? Or our future, I should say. I think we both would get fired then. Unless you can stay like Ruud van Nistelrooy and be caretaker for the end of the season. Let's see if that happens. But yeah, Hankies in, Hankies out for Calvin, or general. Like you can.
Yes, hashtag hankies in or hashtag hankies out. Post that in the Discord, on socials. So many of you have been doing that, which is great. The hashtag DevGel's really stuck recently, which has been phenomenal. It's almost replacing the word development center, and we're now just referring to it as DevGel, which imagines maybe some new users might be like, hang on, the developers in jail? What's going on here? They're a bit odd. What's going on in this game? No, it's just the development of players being in jail. But before we wrap things up, I want to say, Quinny, a massive thank you for coming on. The conversation's been great, really interesting to hear from that different perspective as a new user, but also the content creator side. I hope you've enjoyed yourself.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've had a great one. And it's been really good as well. Like for the parts of the show we use, we're just doing the normal housekeeping stuff, just kind of hearing a lot of the stuff that's going on and, the depth everything's getting stuck into. So I've had a good fun one with this as well. I'm looking forward to seeing the hashtag flying out there as well and seeing what one takes the biscuit. Hankies in or out, but
thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it, guys.
No, probably it's been great, and we've seen with previous hashtags, some people have even done like generative AI and pop that as next hashtag as well. So we get some really creative people in the community.
Love it.
But there we'll go. We'll wrap things up there. Hashtag hankies in, hashtag hankies out. Thank you all so very much for listening, and we'll catch you this time next week for an episode of the When Dirt Cast. Thank you for listening.